You think you know the story of the Pacific War's final naval battles. Massive carrier task forces, kamikaze attacks, the inexorable American advance toward Japan itself. But what if I told you that one of the most crucial moments in the war's end came down to a single slow, ungainly seaplane, a flying boat that was never meant for combat, facing off against the most powerful battleship ever built? This is the story they don't want you to know. The story of how a lumbering PBY Catalina, nicknamed Dumbo and designed for rescue missions, became the David that guided Goliath to his destruction. How a crew of 7 ordinary Americans in an aircraft that could barely outrun a car found themselves playing the most dangerous game of cat and mouse in naval history. How they turned their slow, vulnerable seaplane into a weapon more deadly than any torpedo or bomb. But this isn't just another tale of American heroism or technological triumph. This is the untold story of Lieutenant Commander Thomas Radar Riley and his crew aboard Catalina 44P7, who discovered that sometimes the most important battles aren't won by the strongest or the fastest, but by those brave enough to stay in the fight when every instinct screams at them to run. Welcome to April 7, 1945, when the last great battleship of the Imperial Japanese Navy made its final voyage, and when a flying boat that was never supposed to see combat became the instrument of its doom. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about naval warfare, the nature of courage under fire, and the price of being in the wrong place at the right time when history is being written in blood and steel. April 6, 1945, 1500 hours. Tokuyama Bay, Japan. The super battleship Yamato slips her moorings for what everyone aboard knows will be her final voyage. At 72,000 tons fully loaded, Yamato is the largest and most powerful battleship ever constructed. Her 9 18.1-inch guns can hurl shells weighing as much as small automobiles over distances of 25 miles. Her armor is so thick that it could theoretically withstand direct hits from any weapon in the Allied arsenal. She is the ultimate expression of the battleship concept, a floating fortress designed to dominate any enemy she might encounter. But on this grey April afternoon, as she steams out of Japanese waters for the last time, Yamato is not sailing toward victory. She is embarking on Operation Tengo, a suicide mission designed to inflict maximum damage on American forces invading Okinawa before meeting her inevitable destruction. Vice Admiral Seiichi Ito, commanding the operation from Yamato's bridge, understands the hopelessness of his mission better than anyone. The Japanese Navy no longer has the fuel for extended operations, the aircraft for air cover, or the supporting vessels for a conventional naval engagement. Yamato is sailing alone except for a small escort of destroyers carrying just enough fuel for a one-way trip to Okinawa. Admiral Estincha reports Captain Kosaku Aruga, Yamato's commanding officer, and all departments report ready for sea. Course set for Okinawa, speed 24 knots. Ito nods grimly, knowing that he's leading his men to certain death. But he also knows that Japan's military honor demands this final gesture, this last demonstration that the Imperial Navy will fight to the end rather than surrender without striking a blow. Very well, Captain. Signal the escort vessels. We proceed according to plan. The plan is simple and desperate. Steam toward Okinawa at maximum speed, beach Yamato on the invasion beaches, and use her massive guns as coastal artillery until she's destroyed by American air attacks. It's not a naval strategy so much as an elaborate form of suicide, but it's the only option left to a navy that has been systematically destroyed by 3 years of American naval aviation. What Admiral Ito doesn't know is that American intelligence has been monitoring Japanese naval communications for months, and that the departure of Yamato has been detected within hours of her leaving port. The most powerful battleship in the world is sailing into a trap that has been carefully prepared by Admiral Chester Nimitz and his Pacific Fleet commanders. But the trap requires precise timing and coordination. American carrier task forces are positioned to intercept Yamato, but they need accurate, real-time intelligence about her position, course, and speed. A single mistake in navigation or timing could allow the super battleship to reach Okinawa and inflict devastating casualties on American ground forces. The responsibility for providing that intelligence falls to the unglamorous but essential patrol aircraft of the US Navy. the PBY Catalinas that have been conducting reconnaissance missions throughout the Pacific since the beginning of the war. 800 miles southeast of Yamato's position, Lieutenant Commander Thomas Riley sits in the pilot seat of PBY Catalina 44P7, reviewing his mission orders for what he hopes will be a routine patrol flight. At 31, Riley is a veteran naval aviator with over 3,000 flight hours in everything from fighters to flying boats. He's been flying Catalinas for 2 years, conducting the unglamorous but vital missions that keep the Pacific Fleet informed about enemy movements, search and rescue, anti-submarine patrol, weather reconnaissance, and the endless hours of ocean surveillance that form the backbone of naval intelligence. The Catalina is not a glamorous aircraft. Nicknamed Dumbo by its crews, the PBY is slow, ungainly, and vulnerable to enemy fighters. Its maximum speed of 175 miles per hour makes it slower than most World War I fighters, and its lack of armor or defensive armament makes it easy prey for any enemy aircraft that manages to intercept it. But the Catalina has virtues that make it invaluable for long-range patrol work. It can stay airborne for over 24 hours, has a range of nearly 3,000 miles, and can land on water to conduct rescues or refuel from submarines. Most importantly, it carries the most advanced radar equipment available to the US Navy, making it capable of detecting enemy vessels at ranges far beyond visual contact. Riley's crew for this mission consists of 6 experienced petty officers who have been flying together for over a year. Aviation radioman First Class Danny Chen handles communications and radar operation. Aviation machinist's mate, First Class Roberto Martinez, maintains the engines and flight systems. Aviation ordnance man Second Class James Washington manages the aircraft's limited defensive armament. Aviation electronics technician Second Class Michael O'Brien operates the sophisticated electronic equipment. Seaman First Class Tommy Kowalski serves as the bow gunner and observer, and aviation radioman Second Class David Park handles navigation and backup communications. They're not heroes in the traditional sense, just ordinary sailors doing an ordinary job in an extraordinary war, but they're about to find themselves at the center of one of the most important naval engagements in Pacific War history. "Sai Skipper, we've got new orders coming in," Chen reports from his radio position. "Show priority message from SyncPack." Riley takes the decoded message and reads it with growing interest. Instead of their planned routine patrol, they're being directed to conduct a special reconnaissance mission in the waters between Japan and Okinawa. Intelligence reports suggest that major Japanese naval units may be attempting to sortie from home waters, and all available patrol aircraft are being tasked with locating and tracking any enemy vessels. "Looks like we might actually see some action today," Riley tells his crew over the intercom. As intelligence thinks the Japanese Navy might be making a move toward Okinawa, our job is to find them and report their position. The mission briefing that follows reveals the stakes involved in their assignment. American forces on Okinawa are engaged in the bloodiest battle of the Pacific War, facing desperate Japanese resistance that has already cost thousands of American lives. Any Japanese naval intervention could tip the balance of the battle and result in catastrophic casualties among American ground forces. If there are Japanese warships heading for Okinawa, Riley explains to his crew, and we need to find them and get their position to the task force commanders. The carriers are standing by to launch strikes, but they need accurate targeting information. What Riley doesn't know is that they're about to encounter not just any Japanese warship, but the most powerful battleship ever built, sailing on a suicide mission that represents the last gasp of Imperial Japanese naval power. The flight toward the suspected Japanese position takes 4 hours, during which Riley and his crew maintain constant vigilance for enemy aircraft while scanning the ocean below for any signs of naval activity. The Catalina's radar sweeps continuously, its electronic eye searching for the distinctive signatures of large warships. "Chu, contact!" Chen suddenly announces from his radar position, through large surface contact, bearing 045 degrees, range 40 miles. Multiple targets. Looks like a major formation. Riley feels his pulse quicken as he realizes they've found what they were looking for. But he also understands that detecting enemy warships is only the first step in a complex and dangerous process. Now they have to get close enough to identify the vessels, determine their course and speed, and maintain contact long enough for American strike aircraft to locate and attack them. "All right, gentlemen," Riley announces to his crew, "this is what we trained for. We're going to shadow these ships and report their movements. Stay alert and be ready for anything." As the Catalina approaches the Japanese formation, Riley begins to understand the magnitude of what they've discovered. The radar contacts are larger and more numerous than any Japanese naval formation detected since the early days of the war. Whatever they've found, it's significant enough to change the course of the battle for Okinawa. But Riley also knows that approaching a Japanese naval formation in a slow, lightly armed patrol aircraft is essentially suicidal. If the enemy ships detect them, the Catalina will be an easy target for the massive anti-aircraft batteries that Japanese warships carry. Their only hope is to stay at maximum radar range and avoid visual detection while providing targeting information to the American strike forces. Range to target formation, 35 miles, Chen reports. "I'm getting multiple large contacts, probably battleships or heavy cruisers. This is a major force, Skipper Rick." Riley nods, understanding that they've stumbled onto something far more significant than a routine patrol mission. But he also realizes that they're now committed to one of the most dangerous assignments in naval aviation, shadowing enemy warships that have the firepower to destroy them instantly if they're detected. The cat-and-mouse game that's about to begin will test every skill Riley and his crew have developed during 2 years of patrol flying. They'll have to stay close enough to maintain radar contact while remaining far enough away to avoid the devastating anti-aircraft fire that Japanese warships can bring to bear. But most importantly, they'll have to overcome their natural instinct for self-preservation and stay in contact with an enemy force that represents mortal danger to their slow, vulnerable aircraft. The next few hours will determine not just their own survival, but the fate of thousands of American soldiers fighting on the beaches of Okinawa. The last great battleship of the Imperial Japanese Navy is about to meet the most unlikely opponent in naval history, a flying boat that was never designed for combat, but which carries the most deadly weapon of all, the ability to call down the thunder of American naval aviation. April 7th, 1945, 800 hours. The game of cat and mouse has been going on for 17 hours, and both predator and prey are beginning to feel the strain. Lieutenant Commander Riley maintains his Catalina at the extreme edge of radar range, 35 miles from the Japanese formation, close enough to track their movements but far enough away to avoid visual detection. It's a delicate balance that requires constant attention to navigation, weather conditions, and the ever-changing tactical situation. The Japanese formation has been identified through careful observation and radio intelligence as Task Force 10 Go, centered around the super battleship Yamato and including the light cruiser Yahagi and 8 destroyers. It's the largest Japanese naval force to sortie from home waters in over a year, and its destination is clearly Okinawa. "By Skipper, I'm getting course changes from the target formation," Chen reports from his radar position. "They're zigzagging, probably trying to avoid submarine attacks. Current course 210 degrees, speed 22 knots. Riley plots the new course on his navigation chart, calculating the formation's estimated time of arrival at Okinawa. At their current speed and heading, the Japanese ships will reach the invasion beaches in approximately 18 hours, just enough time for American carrier aircraft to intercept them if they can maintain contact. But maintaining contact is becoming increasingly difficult. The Japanese formation has been conducting evasive maneuvers for hours, changing course and speed in unpredictable patterns designed to shake off any shadowing aircraft or submarines. Riley has had to adjust his own course repeatedly to stay within radar range while avoiding detection. "Fuel status?" Riley asks Martinez, knowing that their ability to continue the mission depends on their remaining endurance. "We've got about 8 hours left at current consumption," Martinez replies. "But if we have to do much more maneuvering or increase speed, that'll drop significantly." It's the eternal dilemma of long-range patrol aircraft, the need to balance mission requirements against fuel limitations. The Catalina has exceptional range, but 17 hours of continuous flight have consumed most of their fuel reserves. Soon they'll have to choose between continuing the mission and ensuring their own survival. The decision is made for them when the Japanese formation suddenly changes course toward the northeast, apparently attempting to shake off any pursuit by taking an indirect route toward Okinawa. New course from the targets, Chen announces. Bearing 045 degrees, speed increasing to 25 knots. They're definitely trying to lose us. Riley realizes that the Japanese commander has detected their presence, probably through radio direction finding or radar surveillance. The enemy knows they're being shadowed, and they're taking evasive action to break contact before American strike aircraft can be vectored to their position. "All right, gentlemen," Riley tells his crew. "Rose, they know we're here. This is about to get interesting." The tactical situation that develops over the next hour represents one of the most unusual naval engagements in military history. A slow, lumbering patrol aircraft attempting to maintain contact with a formation of warships that collectively mount more firepower than most naval fleets. Riley pushes the Catalina to its maximum speed, trying to keep pace with the Japanese formation as it increases speed and begins more aggressive, evasive maneuvers. But the flying boat's top speed of 175 miles per hour is barely sufficient to match the slower Japanese vessels, and any significant course changes threaten to break radar contact entirely. Range to targets increasing, Chen reports with obvious concern. 38 miles an opening. If they maintain this course and speed, we're going to lose them. Riley faces the most difficult decision of his naval career. He can maintain his current position and risk losing contact with the Japanese formation, allowing them to reach Okinawa undetected, or he can close the range and risk detection by the enemy's anti-aircraft defenses, potentially sacrificing his aircraft and crew to maintain the contact that American strike forces need. The decision is made easier by a radio message from Admiral Nimitz's headquarters, relayed through the Pacific Fleet Communication Network. Dumbo 44, this is SINCPAC operations. Maintain contact with enemy formation at all costs. Strike groups are launching now and require continuous targeting information. Your mission is critical to the success of the operation. Riley stares at the message, understanding that he's just been ordered to sacrifice his aircraft and crew if necessary to maintain contact with the Japanese ships. It's the kind of order that defines the difference between routine patrol missions and combat operations. "You heard the man," Riley tells his crew over the intercom. "We're staying with these ships no matter what. Everyone check your equipment and prepare for possible combat." The response from his crew is immediate and professional. These men have been flying together for over a year, and they trust Riley's judgment implicitly. If he says they're staying with the Japanese formation, then that's what they'll do, regardless of the personal cost. It's closing range to 30 miles, Riley announces as he adjusts course to intercept the Japanese formation. "Washington, check the guns. O'Brien, make sure all the electronic gear is working. Chen, I want continuous updates on the target's position and course." As the Catalina closes range with the Japanese ships, the crew begins to understand the magnitude of what they're facing. The radar contacts are enormous, indicating vessels far larger than anything they've encountered before. The formation's anti-aircraft capability must be tremendous, capable of putting up a wall of steel that would destroy any aircraft foolish enough to come within range. "Jesus, Skipper," Washington observes from his gun position. "Those are some big ships. If they spot us, we're going to be in a world of hurt. That's why we're not going to let them spot us," Riley replies with more confidence than he feels. "We'll stay at the edge of visual range and use clouds for cover. They can't shoot what they can't see." But the tactical situation becomes more complex when the Japanese formation begins to spread out, apparently preparing for anti-aircraft defense against the American airstrikes they know are coming. The ships increase their spacing and begin more aggressive zigzag patterns, making it difficult for Riley to track all the vessels simultaneously. Multiple course changes from the targets, Chen reports. They're spreading out and increasing speed. The big one, probably Yamato, is maintaining course 210 degrees, but the smaller ships are taking independent courses. Riley realizes that the Japanese commander is implementing a standard defensive formation, designed to maximize anti-aircraft coverage while making it difficult for attacking aircraft to coordinate their strikes. But the dispersal also makes it harder for a single patrol aircraft to maintain contact with all the enemy vessels. "We'll stay with the big one," Riley decides. "That's the primary target. If we lose the escorts, so be it, but we can't lose contact with Yamato." The decision to focus on the super battleship proves prescient when the first American strike aircraft begin to appear on the horizon. Riley can see the distinctive silhouettes of carrier-based fighters and bombers approaching from the southeast, vectored to the target area by the continuous position reports his crew has been transmitting. Strike aircraft approaching from the southeast, O'Brien reports from his observation position. It looks like a major formation, probably over 100 aircraft. Riley feels a surge of satisfaction, knowing that his crew's 17 hours of dangerous shadowing have accomplished their mission. The American strike forces have found their target, and the most powerful battleship in the world is about to face the concentrated fury of American naval aviation. But the arrival of the strike aircraft also signals the beginning of the most dangerous phase of their mission. The Japanese ships will soon be fighting for their lives, and their massive anti-aircraft batteries will fill the sky with deadly steel. The Catalina, still maintaining its shadowing position, will be caught in the middle of one of the largest naval air battles in Pacific War history. "All right, gentlemen," Riley announces to his crew, "or the cavalry's arriving. But we're not done yet. We need to stay in position to provide damage assessment and coordinate rescue operations for any downed air crews. The battle that's about to begin will test every skill Riley and his crew have developed during their long partnership. They'll have to navigate through a sky filled with anti-aircraft fire while maintaining their surveillance mission, dodging both enemy shells and friendly aircraft while providing the real-time intelligence that American commanders need to coordinate their attacks. But most importantly, they'll have to overcome their natural instinct for self-preservation and stay in the most dangerous place in the Pacific Ocean, directly above the death throes of the last great battleship of the Imperial Japanese Navy. The shadow dance between the Catalina and Yamato is about to become a battle for survival, with the fate of thousands of American soldiers on Okinawa hanging in the balance. April 7th, 1945, 12:30 hours. The sky above Task Force Tengo erupts in a symphony of destruction as 386 American aircraft from Task Force 58 begin their coordinated attack on the most powerful battleship ever built. Lieutenant Commander Riley maintains his Catalina at 8,000 feet, threading a precarious path between the American strike aircraft, diving toward their targets, and the massive anti-aircraft barrage rising from the Japanese ships below. The sky has become a three-dimensional battlefield where death comes from every direction, and survival depends on split-second timing and incredible luck. Holy Mother of God, Washington breathes from his gun position, watching the spectacle unfold below them. So I've never seen anything like this. The scene is indeed unprecedented in naval warfare. Yamato and her escorts are putting up the most intense anti-aircraft fire ever recorded, their guns creating a dome of steel and explosives that reaches up to 30,000 feet. The super battleship alone mounts over 150 anti-aircraft guns of various calibers, from massive 5-inch dual-purpose weapons to rapid-fire 25mm machine guns that can fill the air with thousands of rounds per minute. But the American attack is equally overwhelming. Wave after wave of Helldivers, Avengers, and Corsairs dive through the anti-aircraft fire, their bombs and torpedoes aimed at the vital areas of the Japanese ships. The coordination is perfect, the result of months of training and combat experience that has made American naval aviation the most effective air force in the world. Say strike aircraft are making their runs, Chen reports from his radar position. I'm tracking multiple formations attacking from different altitudes and bearings. The Japanese ships are maneuvering independently now. Riley watches through his binoculars as the first wave of American aircraft begins its attack run on Yamato. The super battleship is turning hard to port, trying to present a smaller target while bringing her maximum anti-aircraft firepower to bear on the attacking planes. The sight is both magnificent and terrifying. 72,000 tons of steel and armor moving with surprising grace as she fights for her life. The first bombs hit Yamato's forward deck, creating massive explosions that send debris flying hundreds of feet into the air. But the super battleship's armor is so thick that the bombs, which would sink most other vessels, seem to have little effect on her fighting capability. Her guns continue to fire, and her speed remains constant as she maneuvers to avoid the torpedo attacks that are coming from multiple directions. "Damn, she's tougher," Martinez observes, watching the battleship absorb punishment that would destroy any other warship. Those bombs are bouncing off her like pebbles. But Riley knows that the American attack is just beginning. The first wave is designed to suppress the ship's anti-aircraft defenses and create openings for the torpedo bombers that will deliver the killing blows. The real test of Yamato's survivability will come when the Avengers begin their low-level attacks with the Mark 13 torpedoes that have proven so effective against Japanese shipping. Main second wave coming in, O'Brien reports. Men torpedo bombers approaching from the port side. This is going to be the big one. The torpedo attack that follows represents the culmination of 3 years of American naval aviation development. The Avengers approach Yamato from multiple angles, flying so low that their propellers almost touch the waves as they line up for their attack runs. The Japanese anti-aircraft fire is intense, but the American pilots press home their attacks with the determination of men who know that this is their chance to sink the most powerful warship ever built. Riley watches in fascination as the first torpedoes hit Yamato's port side, creating massive underwater explosions that lift the entire forward section of the ship out of the water. The super battleship staggers under the impact, her speed dropping noticeably as flooding begins to affect her stability. "She's hurt," Riley announces to his crew. "I can see her listing to port. The torpedo attacks are working." But Yamato is far from finished. Despite the damage she's sustained, the super battleship continues to fight back with devastating effectiveness. Her main guns, originally designed to engage enemy battleships at ranges of over 20 miles, are being used as massive anti-aircraft weapons, firing special fragmentation shells that create enormous explosions in the path of attacking aircraft. "Oh, Jesus, they're using the big guns against the aircraft," Washington observes in amazement. "Those 18-inch shells are like flying buildings." The sight of Yamato's main guns firing at aircraft is both awesome and desperate, the ultimate expression of a battleship's power being used in a futile attempt to ward off the aerial attackers that represent the future of naval warfare. Each shell weighs over 3,000 pounds and creates an explosion visible for miles, but the American pilots continue their attacks with the relentless determination that has characterized naval aviation throughout the Pacific War. The third wave of attacks focuses on Yamato's engineering spaces, attempting to knock out her engines and leave her dead in the water. The Helldivers dive almost vertically, their 1,000-pound bombs aimed at the vital machinery that keeps the super battleship moving and fighting. Direct hits on the engine room, Chen reports, watching the explosions through his binoculars. "She's slowing down significantly. I'd estimate her speed has dropped to maybe 15 knots. Riley can see the change in Yamato's behavior as the engineering damage begins to take effect. The super battleship's maneuvers become sluggish, her turns less sharp, her ability to avoid torpedo attacks compromised by her reduced speed and maneuverability. But the most dramatic moment comes during the fourth wave of attacks, when a coordinated strike by 12 Avengers manages to hit Yamato with multiple torpedoes simultaneously. The explosions are tremendous, lifting the entire stern of the ship out of the water and creating a list so severe that the battleship's main guns can no longer train properly. "She's going over," Riley announces with a mixture of awe and sadness. "The list is increasing rapidly. I don't think she can recover from this." The death of Yamato unfolds with tragic grandeur over the next 30 minutes. The super battleship, mortally wounded by dozens of bomb and torpedo hits, begins her final roll to port. Her massive guns, which had dominated the Pacific for 3 years, fall silent one by one as flooding and damage make them inoperable. "Magazine explosion," Washington shouts, pointing toward the dying battleship. "Look at that fireball!" The explosion that destroys Yamato is visible for over 50 miles, a tremendous fireball that rises thousands of feet into the air as her forward magazine detonates. The blast is so powerful that it rocks Riley's Catalina despite their distance from the target, and the mushroom cloud that follows resembles a small atomic explosion. When the smoke clears, the most powerful battleship ever built has vanished beneath the waves, taking with her over 2,400 officers and men who chose death over surrender. The era of the battleship is officially over, ended by the aerial weapons that represent the future of naval warfare. "And target destroyed," Riley reports to Pacific Fleet headquarters, his voice heavy with the weight of what they've witnessed. "A Yamato has sunk. Repeat, Yamato has sunk." But the mission isn't over yet. Several American aircraft have been shot down during the attack, and their crews are in the water waiting for rescue. Riley's Catalina, designed for search and rescue operations, now reverts to its primary role as a lifesaver rather than a weapon of war. "So I've got survivors in the water," O'Brien reports, scanning the ocean with binoculars. Bearing 090 degrees, approximately 2 miles, looks like at least 3 men in life rafts. The rescue operation that follows demonstrates the versatility that makes the Catalina so valuable to naval operations. Riley brings the flying boat down to wave-top level, using its ability to land on water to pick up the downed aircrews who would otherwise face death or capture. This is what we were really designed for, Riley tells his crew as they maneuver to pick up the survivors. Combat is just something we do when we have to. Saving lives is what we're really here for. Here, the rescue of 6 American aircrews takes 2 hours, during which Riley's crew demonstrates the seamanship and aviation skills that have made Catalina crews legendary throughout the Pacific. They land on rough seas, taxi through debris fields, and take off again with their aircraft overloaded with survivors, all while maintaining watch for Japanese submarines or aircraft that might threaten the rescue operation. Are all survivors aboard? Martinez reports as they complete the final pickup. 12 men total, all in good condition, ready to return to base. The flight back to their base at Karama Reto takes 4 hours, during which Riley and his crew have time to reflect on what they've accomplished during their 26-hour mission. They've tracked the most powerful battleship in the world to its destruction, guided American strike aircraft to their target, and rescued a dozen aircrews from certain death or capture. But perhaps most importantly, they've demonstrated that courage doesn't always come in the form of dramatic heroics or overwhelming firepower. Sometimes it's found in the quiet determination to do your job regardless of the personal cost, to stay in the fight when every instinct tells you to run, to choose duty over safety when the stakes are high enough. Skipper, Chen says during the flight home, do you think we made a difference out there? Riley considers the question carefully, thinking about the role his crew played in one of the most significant naval battles in Pacific War history. I think we did exactly what we were supposed to do. We found the enemy, we tracked them, and we helped our people sink them. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. The debriefing that follows their return reveals the full scope of what they accomplished during their marathon mission. Their continuous position reports allowed American strike commanders to coordinate the most effective anti-ship attack in naval aviation history. Their damage assessments help determine when to shift targets and when to press home attacks. Their rescue operations saved the lives of 12 American aircrews who would otherwise have been lost. But the real measure of their success comes from an unexpected source, a message from Admiral Nimitz himself, congratulating Riley and his crew on their role in the destruction of Yamato and the end of Japanese naval power in the Pacific. Your courage and professionalism in maintaining contact with the enemy formation under extremely dangerous conditions exemplifies the finest traditions of naval aviation, the message reads. Your actions contributed directly to one of the most significant naval victories in American history. Riley retires from active duty in 1946 as a full commander, his career defined by a single mission that demonstrated the importance of unglamorous but essential support operations in modern warfare. He returns to civilian life as a commercial pilot, flying passenger aircraft that are faster and more comfortable than the Catalina, but which lack the character and purpose that made his wartime service so meaningful. But the memory of April 7, 1945, stays with him for the rest of his life, the day when a slow, ungainly flying boat faced off against the most powerful battleship ever built and helped write the final chapter in the age of naval gunfire. The lesson of the Catalina's last stand isn't just about technological change or the evolution of naval warfare. It's about the courage to stay in the fight when you're outgunned and outclassed, the importance of doing your job regardless of personal risk, and the understanding that sometimes the most crucial contributions come from those who never fire a shot in anger. Riley and his crew succeeded, not because they had superior weapons or overwhelming force, but because they had the determination to maintain contact with an enemy that could have destroyed them instantly if they'd been detected. They turned their vulnerability into an advantage, using their aircraft's endurance and radar capability to guide more powerful weapons to their target. The destruction of Yamato marked the end of the battleship era and the beginning of the age of naval aviation. But it also demonstrated the importance of the support aircraft and crews who make modern warfare possible. The reconnaissance planes, the rescue aircraft, the unglamorous but essential platforms that provide the intelligence and logistics that determine victory or defeat. Stories like this remind us that heroism often comes in unexpected forms, that the most important battles are sometimes fought by those who never intended to be warriors, and that courage is defined not by the weapons you carry, but by your willingness to use whatever tools you have in service of something larger than yourself. That's what we explore here. The moments when ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances discover reserves of courage they never knew they possessed, when the tools of peace become instruments of war, when the difference between victory and defeat comes down to individual choices made under impossible pressure. If you believe these stories matter, if you want to understand the human dimension of technological change and military evolution, then subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because there are so many more stories like this one, waiting to be told with the respect and complexity they deserve. You won't want to miss what we discover next.